So my goal here today is to take these 2 boxes of honey, and I'm going to show you how I am taking off the boxes, clearing the bees, putting them on the cart, which I have sitting right here where I'm pointing, and I'm going to take them in. There's so many different ways to do it. You could use an escape board, you could use a fume board like I'm going to. You could take the box whole, or you could do what I'm going to do, which is take the box off of the colony after I use a fume board, set it down on a bench, and pull each frame individually and load it into a second box and take that box in. I like to do that where I can move the cart away from the colony so that any of the stray bees stay out of the box that I'm going to put in the garage. Primarily that's for my wife, because she doesn't like to open the boxes in the garage and have bees coming out of them. So I do a really good job at going frame by frame, shaking all the bees off, using a bee brush and cleaning them off, and making sure that to the best of my ability there's no bees in the box. And I have a couple plastic sheets that I use, the stuff that you would see real estate signs made out of, and I use that in order to cover off the box to keep the bees from going inside. So let me get to the operation. So before I get started, let me show you a couple things. The first one is, this is butyric acid, or honey robber is the brand. There's a bunch of different products like this out on the web. I bought this one, which had a lot in it, and I'm almost done with it. And a lot of people do not like the smell of this. It's rather putrid. You either like it or you don't, like the smell of diesel fuel or skunk. The way you use this with fume board, and by the way, why do I have some of my stuff labeled? You see them in the videos? Because when I have them stacked in the garage and they sit on top of each other, sometimes it's hard to tell that this is a fume board. So it's easy for me to look up in the stack and see something written as inner cover and know that that's not something else, it's an inner cover. So this fume board, the way it works is it has this plastic grid on the top, which is supposed to take the sun and heat up what is underneath the liquid that goes on the carpet. So I like to take the honey robber, and honestly I soak it. You can see how much it squirts. I just cover, I don't know, enough to, when I'm spraying it down, I smell it come off of the board. You don't have to go too crazy. If you go really crazy with the amount of honey robber you put in this, it drives the bees down, but it tends to give a little bit of a smell to the box. I'm really careful about that. I don't want this smell in my honey. If anything's open, it would absorb that. So just a little spritz will go a long way. And the way that you use this is you take the roof off, take the inner cover off, and just set this over the box and leave it sit for a minute. And you'll be shocked at how many bees clear out. And sometimes they not only clear out of the box you're looking for, but they'll drive it all the way down into the brood chamber. Now I know on this box there's honey in this one, there's honey in this one, and I gave them these 2 sitting below it to draw out. It had foundation. So I'm really only expecting to be able to harvest these 2. The process that I'll do is put this on here, I'll drive the bees out, and then I'll move this to my cart and pull the frames like I explained a moment ago. So before I take the roof off, let me just offer a couple comments. I have a smoker lit, and I just put a little smoke into the entrance. Whenever you're going to operate in a hive and you're banging around, you want to make sure that you smoke the bees just a little bit. Wow, it is really on there. Took all my force. Must be propolis on there. Now I don't particularly love smoking my honey supers before I do it. I don't want that smoke in it, but given the bees are up here, I'm just going to give a little bit of smoke, just a couple puffs, to dissuade the guards from having at me. Now with a little bit of smoke, I feel comfortable that I can take the lid off. One-handed while I hold the camera. And I'm just going to set it down here on the ground. You can see there's a lot of bees up in here. What I want to do is give you a look at what this looks like before I put the fume board on. You can see all the bees that are in the colony up here in the top working. And now if I place the fume board on and just wait a few minutes, hopefully it'll clear that quite a bit. So it only takes a minute or two for the fumes to work and clear the box. I typically can find that this box will be clear and it'll even be clear from this one. So I'm just gonna pause for a little bit and I'll come back and show you what it looks like when I'm all done. So a couple minutes has passed by and now I've jumped up on the bench and I think you can see that it's done a really good job at clearing the bees out, and I can pop this box off. So I'm going to take this top box off and then I'll set the fume board on the second one. I have the top box off and I set the fume board over the second one, and now I'll get to work at clearing this super. My task here is to pull each of these frames and I'm going to put them over here in my cart in the prepared box that's sitting there, and I'll use that to transport it in. The green foam sitting over there is every time I put a frame in that box, I set the green foam over it so that no errant bees are going to make it into that box as I take it into the garage. Now there will be a handful of bees in here, and that really doesn't concern me. What I typically do is take my frame with a couple bees and I bang it with my fist, and that dislodges any of the bees. They fly off, and then if need be, I could take my brush and just brush off any strays. But as you see, there's none here, so I could take this and put it right in a box. I'm going to continue that process for every frame in here. One thing when you're taking these bees off, flick, don't sweep, flick them. Especially if they have their head down into a cell. You sweep, you're dragging them along the comb, and you don't want to do that. Sometimes you find that the bees are collected between the woodenware and the outer frame. It's pretty common to see quite a few of them there. That's one place where the honey robber doesn't seem to work as well. Now I could forego banging and just come in and flick the handful of bees off, but I find that just using my fist and doing this, you see how quickly it pops all the bees off. The other day I hit one of these and it actually broke the end bar. Now before you do it, make sure there's no bees up on the top, right? Because you don't want to bang with your fist that way. Yeah, the frame that I hit was one of those real old-fashioned ones that had thin bars like they used to make, and it cracked it. One more, and it's mission accomplished. Now, sometimes they don't get to building the outside frame, and such is the case with this one. There's nectar stored in it, a minor amount, but not a lot. But that's okay, we'll harvest this side and we'll be good to go. Now, in the time I perform this operation, the bees will be clear from the box up here, and I'll be good to go to bring this one down and repeat the process. Now, one of the things I'm going to do with this box is I'm going to use this to load the frames out of that. And so I'm going to bang the errant bees, same process, out of it so there's no bees when I put it on the stack. So no need for smoke, no stings, everything's good. Now I'm gonna go get box number 2. I do like to use these underneath because there's often a lot of honey that drips, and it keeps the entire box filled. These benches are not wide enough to keep the bees from coming up in from the bottom. And so I use a plastic sheet to accomplish that. This box is super heavy. I want to show something real quick while I'm at it. These were frames that had no comb on it at all. They're just foundation. And I'm hoping that they build it out. And as I look down through, they're starting to build out these 2 honey supers. I put these on here because this was a full colony and I didn't have any drawn comb. And my hope is that the bees will build it out. And so far it's mission accomplished. I could see 4 or 5 frames in here that they're building. Okay, let me stay on task. But what I'm going to do is I'm done with this. I'm going to put the roof back on it and it's going to be closed off. And I have pulled my honey from this. No problems. There's one thing I want to point out. There's 9 frames in this box. And the reason I do that is so that the comb face sticks out farther than the side. And when you go to extract it, you can shave right down and not have to fight trying to get the capping off. So there's 9 frames and it ends up with a honey frame that's thicker in dimension. That's the way the bees will build it. And it makes it a far easier job for extraction. So I'm running 9 frames in these honey supers.